In this video, we're going to look at the event object. So when an event occurs, browsers automatically pass an event object to the function that's handling the event. That object can provide properties and methods that we can work with. And the property that we're going to work with right now is current target. And the method we're going to work with is prevent default. So this object gets passed to our event handler, and we can make use of it by looking at this property and using this prevent default method. So one of the things you have to understand is that there's certain HTML elements that have default actions automatically set up for their click event. So for an anchor tag, a hyperlink, the default event when somebody clicks on that is to load the page that is in the href attribute. We've seen that many times. For some kind of input, if it's a submit input, so a submit button, if we've coded a submit button for our form, it automatically wants to submit the form if somebody clicks on that button, which is what we would expect, right? You click the submit button, it submits the form to the place you told it to submit it to. Same thing for the reset button. If somebody clicks a button that's coded as a reset button, it automatically wants to reset the form. So I guess I was saying that for inputs up here, but I was talking about buttons. Submit the form if the type is set to submit, happens automatically. Reset, same thing. All right, but there's times we don't want that to happen. If somebody clicks the submit button and maybe they haven't got the form filled out right, we want to stop that event from happening. We want to stop that action of submitting the form. We want to stop it from happening so we can tell them to correct their errors first. So let's take a look at an example here. Here's a form that we've put on our web page. So this is HTML. Its action is join.html. Its method is get. And we have a text box, input type equals text, called email1. It's got a name of email1. And we have an input type of submit, which is a submit button. So we know when we click on the submit button, it will automatically send information to the join.html when this runs. That's all great, but what if they didn't fill out their email address? So here is some JavaScript that can help us with that. So up here we have an event handler, and in this event handler we provide one parameter called EVT, and that parameter is going to hold the event object. So when somebody clicks it and it generates the event and our event handler gets called, that's going to get passed into this EVT variable parameter. So we're going to go check, hey, go look at email. So document.querySelector, I'm not sure why they didn't use the $sign here, but they didn't. Document.querySelector, go get email1 and check to see if its value is an empty string, meaning they didn't type anything in the box. If it's an empty string, we're going to pop up an alert to the user that says email is required. But then we want to use that event object and call its prevent default method. And that prevents the form from actually getting submitted. So the event object, we call its prevent default, and it prevents the default action from happening so that they can go back and they have an opportunity to fix their email address. Then down in the second section is when we add that event listener. When the DOM content is loaded, we add the event listener for that event so that join list gets called when somebody clicks on the join list button. So they click the join list button, it starts running this event, realizes they haven't filled out the email, and prevents the form from actually being submitted. All right, so we've talked about events and event handlers. We've seen how to attach an event handler to an event. We've talked about anonymous functions, and we've talked about default actions for events. In this chapter, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. We've covered a lot of ground here. In the next few videos, we're going to look at a couple sample applications and kind of pull all that stuff together to actually see it in action in a real application instead of PowerPoint slides.